Why are you doing that?
Because I was trying to make sure that we can see the timekeeper.
Well,
yeah.
Just relax.
We can't see her.
Let it flow.
Okay.
Hey, Wanda, we can hear you guys.
Yeah, go ahead and.
On the top is grayed out. The one at the bottom.
Okay. Bienvenidos. Welcome, everyone. We're just going to give it 1 minute. Vamos a esperar un minuto. Okay. Disculpen la tardanza, excuse the delay. Bienvenidos de nuevo. Welcome again. Mi nombre es Betty Marín y soy gerente de programas con la Alianza para las Artes Tradicionales en California. Hello, my name is Betty Marín. I am a program manager with the Alliance for California Traditional Arts. Voy a hacer un breve anuncio bilingüe en español y en inglés y luego vamos a iniciar con el evento. I'm going to make a brief announcement in Spanish and English, and then we'll get started with the event. Entonces, este es un evento bilingüe. Si no eres bilingüe en español y en inglés, puedes escoger la opción de interpretación en la parte de abajo de tu pantalla, haciendo clic en el globo o escogiendo los 3 puntos bajo más en tu teléfono. If you're not bilingual in Spanish and English, you can choose the interpretation option at the bottom of your screen by clicking on the globe or choosing the 3 dots under More on your phone. Entonces, ahora vamos a probar la interpretación.
Okay, so now we're going to try the interpreting function to make sure that everyone can understand.
Everyone can hear. Entonces, si has escogido el inglés
so if you've chosen English as your preferred language, right now you should be hearing the interpreter saying what I'm saying in English, and you can click mute original audio if you prefer to hear the interpreter only and not the person who is speaking.
Entonces, nomás,
so,
personas me están diciendo que sí escuchan.
People are saying that they can hear. That's great.
So
Thank
if
you so
chosen
much.
Spanish as your preferred language, you should now be hearing the interpreter say this into Spanish now. And you can click mute original audio if you prefer to not hear the original speaker. If you have any issues, perdón, voy a decir esto en español.
Sorry, I'm going to say this in Spanish. If you have any issues with the interpreting, please send a message to me, Betty, in the chat, and I will help you. I'd like to thank Alexia and Jeneliana for being here as interpreters today. They are interpreters who share our values of language justice, the right that we all have to express ourselves in our languages. And this is an effort as well to undo the gender binary, and so we are going to use the E ending instead of the A or O ending in Spanish. So we're going to pronounce words in Spanish using that E ending. If you want more information about the interpreters, you can contact us. We'd be very happy to share their information with you. With that, I'd like to pass the mic to the Executive Director of California Alliance for California Traditional Arts, Amy Kitchener, to welcome us. Thank you so very much.
Welcome to the Traditional Arts Roundtable series, Grief, Loss, and Cultural Practice. Here we are in the virtual living room of ACTA. And what a beautiful group of people we've assembled tonight to share this evening, and an equally beautiful group of Zoomers. I see people from near and far, and lots of folks here. It's a really beautiful group. We felt that the session theme of grief and loss and cultural practice was especially timely as we collectively process the loss of so many who have died of COVID over the past 20 months, the disproportionate deaths of Black and Brown people across the country, also dying of COVID, and also as we process the collective grief, the outrage that we feel with the tragic murder of George Floyd and so many other Black people who have died at the hands of the police, as we process the grief that comes from public hate against Asian Americans, we wanted to make a space here tonight to talk about our losses and grief and the specific cultural practices rooted with culture bearers here with us tonight and their communities as a source of strength and solidarity across the California cultural communities we collaborate with at ACTA. I have the honor of introducing Doña Ofelia Esparza and Rosanna Ahrens Esparza, mother and daughter. We're going to turn to them to facilitate our arrival to this space. Ofelia and Rosanna are ACTA staff members, and they work as teaching artists in the prisons with ACTA, as well as artist fellows in building healthy communities in Boyle Heights with ACTA. And they're both amazing multidisciplinary artists. Perhaps Doña Ofelia may be the most well-known as an Altarista or altar maker, for which she received the National Heritage Fellowship from the National Endowment for the Arts in 2018. Both of them go back really far with ACTA and our history. At least 20 years ago, I think we started working together that was with an apprenticeship between Doña Ofelia and her daughter Rosanna in altar making. So please, thank you, Ofelia and Rosanna, and we'll turn to you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. What an honor for us to be part of this group, and welcome to this space for a very timely and necessary discussion and sharing today. We have a very short time, so Rosanna will do the actual arrival ceremony, and thank you for allowing us to be here with you today.
Good
Rosanna.
evening, everyone. And I'm so proud to be present with my mother, Ofelia, and with all of you that chose to be here tonight. And we just want to bring ourselves together into the same breath, into a presence of just the breath. So let's just take a deep breath and feel ourselves in our spaces, in our homes or offices, wherever you are. Just feeling your body where it is and your feet on the ground. And let's just stretch up our arms up into the higher realms and ask for presence from the ancestors, just welcoming them into this space. And as you call them in, maybe you don't know all their faces, but know that they're smiling and they look at you and they agree and they approve. And just bring that energy down into your heart center. I'm sure you can feel that tingling, that presence that's there, and just hold them here in your heart. And we welcome all into this space, into this circle, into this presence, so that we are united with them in the understanding of loss and grief, but also of wholeness, that we are whole before we come into this realm, and we are whole when we leave it, and we are whole in the presence of each other in this space with the ancestors. Take a breath. Let it out. And now we could just open our eyes and send each other love and good vibrations and welcome each other into this space.
Wow. Wow, relatives. Relatives.
I'm sorry, Fui.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought we were. Go on, Betty.
Oh, quería preguntar, Jen, quisiera
Just wanted to
presentar a
ask,
Fui.
Jen, do you want to introduce Fui?
Voy a presentar a Fui porque creo
I'm
que
going
Jen
to
está
introduce Fui
apoyando
because I think that
otro
Jen
presentor
is
ahorita en este
supporting
momento.
another of our
Entonces,
presenters in this
tenemos un
moment.
placer muy grande
So we
de
have a
tener a la
very
doctora
tremendous
Fui
pleasure to
Niumeitolu,
have Dr. Fui
quien está aquí para
Niumeitolu, who
facilitar
is
esta
here
conversación.
to facilitate this conversation.
Y la doctora Fui es una académica,
Dr.
es
Fui
una
is
narradora
a
y
scholar,
organizadora
a storyteller,
comunitaria
and
tongana,
community
isleña del
organizer
Pacífico.
who
Y su
is
trabajo
Tongan Pacific
comunitario y su
Islander. Her
investigación se
community
centra
work and
en la justicia
research
climática
centers on
y
climate and
territorial,
land
la abolición
justice,
de las
prison
cárceles y la
abolition
justicia
and
restaurativa.
restorative justice,
Y también,
and
por fin, también
also
contra la violencia
ending
contra las
violence
mujeres
against women and
y para
building
construir solidaridad
radical
radical entre las
solidarities
personas
between
isleñas del
Pacific
Pacífico
Islanders
y tribus
and
indígenas
American
americanas
Indian
para
tribes
proteger los
to
sitios
protect
sagrados
indigenous sacred
indígenas en
sites
California y
in
en el
California
Pacífico.
and in the
Entonces
Pacific.
tenemos el gran honor de
We
tenerla
have the
como
tremendous honor
facilitadora para
of
esta
inviting
conversación.
Fui
Entonces
to
ahora le voy a
facilitate our
pasar
conversation
la
today, and
palabra a
now
ella.
I'm going to pass the mic
Gracias, Fui.
to her. Thank you so much, Fui.
Wow. Betty, thank you so much. Betty and Jen, thank you so much for your great work. Actually, it's hard work, right? To bring us all together in Tongan, in the Pacific, we have a word, Talanoa space. Talanoa space is a sacred space, right? For us, it's actually a cultural practice that we recognize that there are many difficult issues to speak about, but what Talanoa space is that it brings us together. It is a cultural space as well, that everyone gets a voice. And even in critical conversations, that everyone gets a voice and every voice is privileged is also one of our Tongan and Pacific culture practices. And I remember that, and I also bring that with me. And I just really want to say thank you so much. Malo, malo, ngawe, malo, ma'u ofa. Thank you for the great love, Betty and Jen, for organizing this Talanoa space. And also, thank you so much, Betty. Excuse me, and please forgive me. Thank you so much, Amy, the executive director for the Alliance for California Traditional Arts. Thank you so much for your vision and for bringing all our various and respective communities to this Talanoa space. So relatives, please forgive me, I'm gonna look at some of my notes. It's just because there's so much that I wanted to say and we have very little time, right? As a Tongan, it's really tough for me to stay on Western time. And I wanna stay on Western time tonight, especially because we have some really important cultural practitioners that we want to hear from and that are here to really share their important work and their struggles and also survivance. Right, and I bring up this word survivance because this is what they do. This is what they do. Survivance is a term that was coined by the respected Chippewa scholar, right, and leader, Gerald Visner. So what survivance is not just about the surviving, right? It's not just the difficult work for Indigenous and marginalized Black, African-American, LGBT women to survive. But what is important, relatives, and I hope that you will, and I know that you're going to see this tonight, it's just not the act of surviving, the difficult work of surviving, but it is also the act of healing and thriving, right? And so this is what's so exciting about our program tonight. So I hope that all of you have your snacks and water and are ready to hear some healing, some medicine tonight. You know, I just wanted to say malo e ofa, malo e ngawe ofa. Thank you for your great work of love to Auntie Ofelia and to our sister Rosanna. thank you for starting us off with ceremony, because that's also one of the core themes of our program and our Talano space tonight, relatives, is the importance of ceremony, especially at a time of great loss. We want to show and we want to highlight and illuminate, right, the important role of, I want to point this out before I go on, not just ceremony that you saw and the importance of honoring and protecting the sacred, but women, right? Intergenerational, a mother and a daughter. So what we're also seeing in this moment of great loss, what Indigenous and marginalized peoples have done with times of great loss is actually to create collaborations, right? And to strengthen and to nourish our relationships. Relatives also, before we go on with our program, I also wanna do a land acknowledgement. I also recognize that a land acknowledgement is not just a verbal, statement, but it is a statement also that requires reciprocity. It also requires me as although I'm an Indigenous woman from the Pacific, I'm also still a settler on these Indigenous lands. In this particular place that I'm at, relatives, I'm in Oakland, California, right? And two things that we're really, really proud of here in Oakland, California, is that we're the home of the Black Panthers, right? The Black Panther movement, movement for Black self-determination. And also another important point about Oakland, California, and the place that I'm from, the part that I'm from, is that about a mile away from where I'm at is the first Lishan Ohlone, right? The Lishan Ohlone is one of the 8 Ohlone tribes in this part of the East Bay, California, right? The original stewards of the land. And about a mile away from me is the first Lishan Ohlone Arbor or prayer house. It's the first one that has been built in 250 years, right? And so I also mention this because I also ask you, relatives, that wherever you're from, right? Whatever part of what is now of Turtle Island, what is now known as the United States of America, that you're zooming in from, I ask you please to learn about the Indigenous peoples of the lands that you currently live in, right? Because wherever you're at here in the United States, what is now known as the United States, excuse me, we are all living on occupied and unceded Indigenous lands, right? And so when we give a land acknowledgement, it also requires action. And I hear you, right? All the brothers and sisters, the Indigenous brothers and sisters who tell us and remind us that a land acknowledgement must be more than just a verbal statement. So relatives, also going on, I recognize we have a lot today. You know, Amy, I wanted to thank you so much for the great introduction to the program that you gave. You know, in the past 2 years, and so what I want to do is just be in conversation with you, Amy, and help set up the program for tonight. It's really, you know, relatives, it's really with great humility, right? When we talk about grief and loss, at this time, after 2 years, that so many marginalized communities really saw the inequality of our great nation, right? It was laid bare. And marginalized communities disproportionately carried on our backs a lot of the inequalities of this nation. We saw that especially during the last 2 years, right? And so again, I really want to give and pay homage and honor, right, to women who are really holding it down, who are on the front lines, right? Women, also to our people of color, so many Black, brown, our Asian brothers and sisters too, who are disproportionately also suffering from violence and systemic hate. And relatives also our LGBT and queer and trans brothers and sisters who will also, as many of you have known, have disproportionately at this moment also suffering from hate crimes and also from homophobia, not just here in our Oakland, right? Our beloved Oakland and our beloved California, but also we're seeing that throughout the nation and throughout the world, right? And so the program tonight also, as you will see, relatives, you will see the cultural practitioners show us a kind of map, right? A new kind of map, a map that refuses the settler colonial map, the colonial map of systemic violence. You're going to see a map that also shows that honors, like we saw from our 2 cultural practitioners in the beginning, a way that the past is so necessary, it cannot be erased. that when we envision our present moment and when we create new dreams, it must include the past. And we do this to reimagine, right, a different kind of future for what Indigenous peoples say the next 7 generations. Then this new futurity has to include the ancestors of both the past and the present. And relatives, just to set up our wonderful conversation that's yet to come too, is I really want to show the important role of cultural practices, right? Cultural knowledges, traditional knowledges as a healing medicine, right? It's also to practice these cultural traditions is also an act of refusal, right? It's an act of resistance, as well as Amy also talked about. It is a medicine to craft, reimagine, and dream new possibilities. And so we move on to our program tonight. I just really want to say thank you so much again to ACTA for this beautiful space and so much love. Malo ofa, to all our relatives, our cultural practitioners that we're going to hear from. So, and I give you back the mic, so to speak, Amy, to introduce Preston if he's here.
Thank you so much, Fui, for the beautiful opening words and for having you tonight here to facilitate us in such a strong and beautiful way. I have the honor of introducing Preston Arrow-weed, who I think is here on the phone with us. And I've known Preston probably about 20 years, and Preston is a member of the Quechan tribe, and he was raised by his Kumeyaay grandmother. And Preston, we want to defer to you, as a California First people, and also an elder here to start us off tonight, talking about our theme of grief and loss and mourning, and how you've approached that. And I know this is a really deep topic for you because you've been working on bringing back some of the mourning ceremonies from your community. And ACTA was honored to support a project you worked on with a Living Cultures grant for this. So we're very excited to hear from you. Preston is a language, keeps his language and many ceremonial songs, and is really a very treasured and has very deep connections. He's also an actor, and he's a dramatist and a playwright. And so, Preston, are you there? Can you hear us? And can you begin? Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, everyone. Preston is on the phone, so we're going to give him a second. See, Preston, are you able to speak, or maybe unmute yourself somehow? Okay. Let's see, Preston, can you maybe hit an unmute button on your phone, or? Okay. Maybe we will come back to Preston.
Okay, we'll come back to Uncle Preston very soon. And thank you, everybody, for your patience. As we all know, right, as we've all learned in these past 2 years, the Zoom and the internet is not always, it's not always reliable. But we're really excited, and it's a great privilege for us to hear from Uncle Preston Arrow-weed very shortly. So then we'll go on to our next person. And so I just wanted to present the question, and Amy already had raised the question before. What are some cultural traditions, practices, knowledges that you or the community that you represent have used to confront and process grief and loss? Okay, and so we'd like to go to our next amazing cultural practitioner. We'll go to Haydee. Haydee, if would love to hear from you next.
Yes, exactly. Yek Tunal, Kentinemi, muy buenas tardes. Bienvenidos a todos.
Hi, good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. My name is Haydee Sanchez. I am Nahua Pipil from Santiago de Uxtlan, and now known as El Salvador. Since 1983, I have worked with indigenous communities and immigrant communities. I am the president of the board of the Cultural Center of Techantit since its foundation 2009, and I am also the executive director of the center. I am also an ancestral authority of the National Council of the Diaspora. I am a founding member of the and with the Maya Visiones. I also provide consulting for indigenous organizations that are dedicated of advocacy for indigenous rights and also the territorial integrity of Mother Earth. Haydee, I am sorry to interrupt you. Could you please read a little bit slower? Well, basically slower, because sometimes when we read, we tend to go faster, but yes, please slow down. Okay, thank you.
Presidenta del Conclave Global de Pueblos Indígenas en la ONU.
I was a president at the UN in 2012 of the Conclave Global of Indigenous Pueblos Indígenas. I have also worked doing research and compiling abuse of human rights against indigenous women. I work every day to guarantee indigenous and human rights of the original communities of Abya Yala and the diaspora. My dream since I was a little girl was to defend Mother Earth, the environment, and our sacred water, and also to rescue our ancestral roots. So knowing our history of suffering and loss caused by the genocide that indigenous communities suffered in El Salvador in 1932, and with the loss of over 35,000 loved ones who were assassinated by the government of El Salvador just because they're indigenous, we decided to rescue not only our ancestral roots, but also our clothes, ceremonies, languages, traditional medicines, and customs. That is the main objective of Centro Cultural Techantit, the cultural center of Techantit. The mourning and loss of our ancestors has made us stronger today, and that allows us to fight not only for our indigenous peoples, but also for the migrants forced to leave their ancestral territories due to a hunger caused by globalization. During the pandemic, there has been a great loss of life in our communities. More than 85 people near me have died of COVID. Most are indigenous. I was also about to die of COVID as well. And I know very closely about the pain that families face during the disease and the recovery process. So for that reason, it is very important that we resort to our sacred ancestral medicines and ancient customs, so that our communities can heal and move forward after the irreparable loss of a loved one. Today, I am going to share some of the ways in which us Nahua Pipiles honor the deaths of our loved ones, as well as the rituals and practices associated with loss and grief. The Nahua Pipiles, the same or like as other indigenous communities in Mesoamerica, honor and commemorate the recently deceased with the prayers, altars, and songs. For 9 days after the death of a loved one, one offers candles so that our loved one can have light and emerge from the shadow of a darkness and can reach the clarity. We also offer water at the end of the altar for them to drink during the process of transition. On the first day that a loved one dies, we have a vigil, the sacred altar, and we start praying. We believe that if we continue crying after during 13 days for a loved one, he or she will continue to suffer and will not be able to go to their eternal resting place. That is the reason why at the end of 9 days, we share coffee, sweet bread, chocolate, hot chocolate, atole, tamales, and we also go to the cemetery to bring the flowers that were collected during those 9 days. It is on this day that we must stop crying for our loved ones and let their spirit go so that they may rest in peace. The following 4 days, we offer prayers, we meditate, and we reflect on what we learned from our loved ones during their life. And we also offer them our most sincere acknowledgement and thank you for all they taught us to become better human beings. We reflect on what they did and what they taught us and how they helped us grow, and most importantly, how we will continue to help us even after their death. Because now that the loved one is in the spirit world, they're going to help us in a much better way. We also place additional offerings on the table. Some of the most common items include images like the ones that you are looking at that altar right now, water, liquor, and flowers. And then we wish that our loved ones are in the world of light and for them to help others reach their eternal rest, because it is there where they're going to be used to us, and more so, they will transform. We see the death of a loved one as a physical loss, but it is also, and the most important is that we see it as a spiritual gain. Even if painful, though painful and difficult, the death of a loved one, it also means that we are gaining a new ancestor, that we are gaining a new grandfather or grandmother who will help us protect and guide us in life through this earth. It is that is why during the fire ceremonies we ask respectfully our ancestors who have crossed the river to the spiritual world to accompany us, to help us and provide us with everything we need to move forward with our life and the life of the community, so we can achieve a better world filled with light, harmony, and peace. It is important for us, the transition of our grandparents is very important, because at this moment, they're our guides and our help and our strength. So the loss of a loved one, the physical loss, we transform that into a spiritual support for us. I want to thank ACTA for organizing this beautiful event. Truthfully, is something very, very beautiful, being able to share with you all that loss, that it is irreparable, but also how the indigenous peoples, as we can improve through our worldview, something that it is very painful, but with something that it is also beautiful. Thank you to ACTA, and thank you to all the Gabrielino Tongva people for allowing us to be here in this ancestral territory here in Los Angeles, California. Thank you and goodbye.
Haydee, malo. Malo Abika Haydee. Thank you so much. That was so moving for our spirits. And also, Haydee, what a great blessing it is that you're here. You're still here in our world with us. We're so grateful for your life. And thank you for the great work that you do. And so relatives, also, relatives, I want to remind the wonderful cultural practitioners, I recognize that you're all experts in your field, that we only have 7 minutes for this very short presentation. And then the next part is we're going to do more conversation with you. Okay, so our next cultural practitioner is Auntie Wanda.
Oh, Fui?
Yes.
If I can jump in, we've got Preston Arrow-weed with us. And so Preston, can we introduced you, but we didn't have you with us yet. So welcome, Preston. Are you ready to share with us some about your work in mourning and bringing back your mourning rituals and what you have to say on this topic? Can you hear us, Preston? And can you unmute yourself and join in?
What happened?
Okay.
There you are. Welcome, Preston.
Yeah.
They could
Can you hear me now?
they did it them.
Perfect.
I can't see myself.
We see you. Just take it away.
You want me to just talk?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I believe that it's a long story, and how many minutes I got, it's a long story, but I'll try to summarize it, I guess. I just recently they had a funeral, and I went there because it was my relative. I came out of retirement to sing two different songs, and the songs are really the history, the past. It's a journey that I'm putting this the person in that journey to go all around and come back in the morning, to get there in the morning and leave when the sun comes up. That's what I'm doing. Now, the songs, there are two different songs. The one is a Kumeyaay song, one is a Quechan, which is a lightning song. The lightning song is a very interesting one. But as I spoke, I said, death brings us together. Sometimes we don't acknowledge each other, we don't see each other, we don't talk together, but death brings us together. And through death, we also leave to another world. Now, to us, or to me, to mourn, all we can do is put death at a distance. But the mourning is also the mourning. You go through everything because it's a psychological healing. That's what it really is. The psychological healing. Now, we cremate the body. We cremate the body. We have songs for the cremation. We have songs all night, and everybody's there to mourn all night. We sing songs all night. We dance all night because the person that's laying there took part in this ceremony, so they have to do it over again. They dance for this person because this is what they did. They did it all the time. Because I remember some were sang the bird, they left the bird dance, they got bird singers, peepaw singers, the lightning singers. These are from the past. And we do these dances, and it's for that person there. Now, we also have clothes, things that we put there that are from that person's family. I was related to the one person, so my mother's things were put there too, to be together with my family. And other people put their things there too. So we carry those clothes or a bundle and dance with that. Now, sometimes we get up and sing and dance around the body. The reason why we dance around it is to protect the body. The reason why to protect the body, in the creation story at the very beginning, the coyote came in to steal the heart. So to keep the coyote away, we still dance around that body. Now, I'm not saying everybody knows that. A lot of people don't know it because it's fading right now. But we still practice. We still do it. It's just something we do. It's not just something we do all the time. For anyone who passed away, we do this. So we dance around the body and we sit down again and sing, go on with it. And the people go and acknowledge each other, who's ever there. And I think that I know that as a singer, as a personal singer of these songs, I understand exactly word for word what I'm saying. It's not phonetics, it's an actually word, every word that I'm saying. So it seems like as I can do that, as I'm dancing around, taking the dance going around, I kind of sense that coyote, that he's standing there. He is dancing. He's trying to deceive us to doing that. What is that? But I sense that. And I'm dancing around. We're dancing around to protect it. And I think also when I sing the Kumeyaay songs about protecting the body, I sense that too, because I'm reciting words that are the oldest words in the United States. Our people have been in California, from Northern California all the way down to Mexico, so long that the archaeologists don't want to admit how long we've been here. The United States don't want to talk about us, how long we've been here. It shows you that they don't want to talk about that, because to do that would to say it's wrong for what they've done in the past. I'll tell you a little history too. In Northern California, a long time ago, Ishi, the last person of the Yahi, which is the Yahi at by Mount Shasta and Mount Lassen, when he was at Berkeley, when he passed away, he wanted to be cremated by the Mojave, which is our neighbor, because he believed. So you can see that we can go all the way up to Northern California, where I'm at. Sometimes I'm called down to Baja, Mexico, to sing for those Kumeyaay people, the songs that they know, that I know. It's a Kumeyaay song. I do that too, to help them go when the time comes, when the sun comes up, they will leave and go where they're going. Now, there are certain, when the end comes, we put these clothes in there, the cremation, we cremate the body, because it goes back to the Creator. When he left the world, we had to cremate him, because fire is energy, and we have energy around us. You know, like when they're up there, they say, get up and dance. They say, is that over? Something came on. Can you still hear me?
Oh, do make
Yes, we hear you. Yes, we hear you.
What happened? Is it over?
No, go ahead, Preston. If you want to start to
Oh, I can stop anytime. I tell you, it's a long story, and I can go beyond and on and on and on. I sing all night too. So you asked the wrong person to talk.
That's right, Uncle Preston. Actually, we asked the right person. And so it's great to see you. It's great to see you, and thank you so much. You know, I just think about the great compassionate work that you do, the great compassionate work of singing, offering those important medicine songs to help support the relatives that are taking their journey, transitioning and going to the other world. So it's great to, thank you so much, Maloing Owl, and thank you so much for being here tonight. And so relatives, our time, as you know, our time is, you know, we're working with our time here. We're improvising as we go, and thank you so much for your patience. And our next person is Auntie Wanda.
Greetings, everyone. I believe that right now, my husband and I, Tabaji Stewart, that we are on the Lishgen portion of the Ohlone tribe in East Oakland. I believe that's where we are. And so we give thanks for being able to be here and to thrive in this land. So I'm going to talk about what we do. So the name of our group is called Omnira Institute. It was founded in 2011. And what we decided to do, especially when we became more, through my husband's work, learn more about the ancestor ritual, was to take that ritual to the streets, and especially at the places where people have been killed by the police, the state sanctioned violence. We really started getting involved after Mario Woods was killed in San Francisco on December 2nd, 2015. And what we do is it's typical for a homegoing in the Lukumi tradition. And the Lukumi tradition, of course, originally came out of Africa, and it's transatlantic interpretation and practice that has its roots in Africa, but came out of Cuba. So each of us is initiated as a priest in that tradition. I'm initiated to Oya. Tubaji is initiated to Shango. My sacred name is Oyadei, and his is Obatero. And nevertheless, 7 years ago, our elder, we went to him and said, you know, can we do this in the street? Because typically it's done privately for an individual who has passed. And so we got the go ahead to begin to go to the street. Our altar is similar to Haydee's. The difference is that our color of mourning is white. And so you'll see in these pictures that that's what we wear. You'll see that the altar is also white cloth, or generally we cover it with white cloth. 7 or 9 white candles, 7 or 9 vessels of water. And they are used similarly in the way that Haydee described, as these are for the ancestors. The first time this is done, nothing is done for 7 to 9 days. If the person who passed away is male, 7 days. 9.
Male 9.
Male 9, female 7. And I'm sorry for that. And then we use the most formal presentation of this ceremony is with the bata drums, which is 3 double-headed drums that are sacred. This form of drum is female. It is activated by male. And I think, let me see, how am I doing on time? Okay. So we did this, the first anniversary, the picture on the left is the first anniversary of the death of Mario Woods. If you remember, he was killed in broad daylight. I shot at 41 times. Don't remember how many bullets were in his body. He was executed by the San Francisco police. None of them, there were no charges brought against the police, although this was videotaped. It was obvious what the police did. So the community was in an uproar. What we found is that these songs, the sound of the drum is healing. Especially the parents of the person who was killed, they have told us that it makes a difference, that they can feel it in their bodies, that it helps them to heal. So I'll have my husband do what would be the opening prayer. And if there's time, we might sing one of the first song when we greet someone who has arrived to the Hall of the Ancestors.
Good evening, everyone. My wife explained very much what we do. And as we were spoken before, this is more than a notion. It takes a long time actually to do the ritual. But we always begin our ritual, as was spoken of before, is by acknowledging our ancestors. There's so many different ways of thinking about this, but one thing I think is universal is that we give an offering. Sometimes expressed as pouring a libation. Sometimes it's talked of as giving a libation. So I'm going to give a libation as you take your fingers and moisten them at the end, and you drop Omi Tutu, Ona Tutu, Ile Tutu, Tutu La Roye. And what I said was we take cool water to cool the road, to cool the house, and to give offering to the messenger, which we call Eshu or Elegbada, the deity of the crossroads, the ones who, when you give an offering, delivers the offering for you. So you always acknowledge him. After you have given a libation, you also will say, Kozi ku, kozi anu, kozi eyo, kozi alopa, kozi seji, kozi ofo, kozi fatipu, kozi orun, ai kubabawa. And what I briefly just asked for is that we have a long life, that we have no accidents, that we don't have any have an accident and go home early. That we will live a long life and continue to do this work. And then from there, we do a prayer. Prayer is long, but I'm gonna do it fast and short. You say, yeah, we don't have much time, so I'm gonna do it shortly, okay? I say, oh Lord, the mighty Mojilon, yo, igon kini, igon keji, igon keta, igon kering. Oh Lord, Johnny, bobo reba tobo wani diaye, wafumini temi, taya tomo tekbe tokba, wafi ekofi wa, wafi lene kofi sheti wa, imbari, and koji temi yo, Allah yo, afuye gekeke machekbe. Lord, net for a kole, obaya koabi, doom. Allah yo, ifawa potewa, eshua potewa, oguni potewa, egongon potewa. Bobo Risha Bobo Egon, Ibotewa, Yeki Awaye, Kiola Satayo Tomo, Tiri Loving, Bakpon Nilia Ye, Ashe. And so what I said was I asked that the creator of all things, the one who brought the great spirits into this world, the one who is the inventor of light, come to us where we are, come rapidly, come fast, come for our children, come for our wives and their husbands, come for the children that are unborn children that are to come. Come, we plead with you. Do not turn your ears from us. We know that we can never fully understand you, but if we only but try, our life will be sweet, sweet, sweet. Brief interpretation of the prayer. I will turn this back over to my wife.
Okay, so we're at 8 minutes. So thank you, everybody. And what I would be called is Iya, which is mother, and he would be called Baba. Iya Wanda, Baba Tabaji.
Thank you very much, you all.
Thank you.
So beautiful. Thank you so much to our mother, Wanda, and also to our father, Tabaji. Thank you so much. Taking it to the streets, what a compassionate work. Thank you so much. And our next cultural practitioner that we will hear from is Melody Takata.
Thank you, Fuifui. So I am Melody Takata. I'm 4th generation Japanese living in the diaspora. I'm deeply immersed in Japanese cultural practice and classical and folk dance, shamisen, the 3-string instrument, and taiko drumming. I create both traditional works and diaspora artworks. Our organization teaches in the San Francisco Japantown community as an after-school program, and we also do satellite programs, meaning we go into schools to work with students during school time, as well as creating community intergenerational work. And as an individual artist, I create theater works, collaborating with spoken word, jazz improvisers, modern dancers, and filmmaker Tatsuya Oki to contextualize the Asian American landscape, touching upon themes of colonialisms, current issues, and psychological effects that have taken place upon Japanese diaspora. Okay, if we can move to the next slide. So that's a picture of my daughter, Crystal. Crystal had approached me this summer, and we were talking about Toronagashi, which is the paper lanterns you saw in the water there. It is a ritual practice that takes place after Obon. Obon is 3 days long of celebrating ancestry and dancing in the, and it's uniquely tied with Buddhism in Japanese culture. Toronagashi, you write the name of the person who had already passed on, their spiritual name, and you place it in the water to help guide them back to the other world. In this case, we decided to use this concept for an event we called Michi Shirube at the crossroads. And so I had my daughter speak for us for the first part. So she led the audience to freely express, in the sense of giving out the names of the person that they have lost, and share the space as we welcome our ancestors back into the space. And Karen Stackpole, who was playing the gongs to help emanate that feeling. So this was our way of expressing community mourning. And we were talking about this process during a grant writing session that we were talking about maybe doing this for the next 3 years, and cross-pollinating with other neighborhood expressions. In the next slide, we have 2 pictures. We have Francis Wong in both pictures. He performed a piece called Sorrow. It was kind of a reminder of historical racism and the resistance to hatred during the Third World Strike that his brother was involved in. Jenny Lim, poet laureate, she did 2 pieces, one called Snow Lion, and it's to share her concern for Asian and African American relationship that Janice Mercatani messages of solidarity between two communities. That is kind of her life practice. Jenny Lim also did a piece called Rain, and it speaks to the ecological welfare of the California, the loss of wildlife and humankind during the fires ravaging through California due to human climate change factors. And AK Black, shown in that picture above, he shared a piece called I Shall Rise. It's recalling World War II internment when the Japanese Americans were taken away. And we talked about redevelopment and how that some of these historical calamities had affected us as neighbors, as a Japanese American in San Francisco, Japantown, as well as the Western Addition, which is the African American community. And then moving on to the next slide, we did 3 pieces that were kind of a way of honoring Hideko Nakajima sensei, who was our very dear to not only the immigrant community, but those who first and second generation, and we worked a lot together. So actress Takata performing here the song Fever, and she did it in enka style in tribute to Nakajima sensei, who was a professional singer in Tokyo, Japan, and she immigrated to this country. Then the other piece we did, Tori no Yoni, which is Bird in Flight, which was performed with Shoko Hikage and myself together. So I did a Japanese dance using the shamisen as a way to symbolize Nakajima sensei and the idea of the bird taking flight and moving on with the next phase of their life. And then the third piece on the next slide, called Hachijo, We did this performance, Hachijo, with Nakajima sensei and Yoshizawa sensei. They're kind of cut off on the top there, but we had them, the music and her singing. So it really felt like she was there as we performed together. And so some of my students and our ensemble members are in this picture performing live with the video. So that was our tribute to her. And Hachijo is kind of a unique piece that we do because it honors women in the dance and through playing taiko drums. Okay, and then moving on to the next piece. So Gen, which is part of the name of our organization, meaning to come from origin, was inspired by the Gyo Matsuri Festival, which began in 869 during the epidemic that raged through the region of the capital of Kyoto. So the style of sitting on the floor was developed due to limitations of playing inside the giant wooden carts that were about 1 story tall. Gyo Matsuri is celebrated lasting 3 days. And my interpretation of playing this piece is really honoring this kind of purification rite of through ase, through the sweat of playing on this drum for 3 days, and a way of cleansing from the epidemic. And it's also in celebration of community, because Gyo Matsuri is still done today. Last piece, I'm gonna squeeze this in. So AK kind of led us into his piece in due time. And I think this whole thing overall helped with working through some of our historic kind of calamities that have happened upon us and that we carry in our DNA that we feel always needs to be cleansed out. And so if you feel comfortable, if you want to repeat with me, that would be really great. So this is the last one of the parts that he had all of us join in chorus. So in due time, surely we're going to cross that line. Meantime, got to maintain a strong frame of mind. Excuse me. Keep our eyes on the prize. Uprise until we're equal, and raise up our fist and scream, power to the people. So I will end it there. So thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Melody. Thank you so much. Wow, what a beautiful presentation that was. And thank you so much for your important work in honoring the ancestors. Power to the people, power to the people. Thank you so much. And what was also so beautiful, one of the themes that resonated with me in your presentation, Melody, is the mother and daughter. Mother and daughter, again, these relationships and how important they are, especially during times of loss. And so that brings us up to our last cultural practitioners. The two wonderful, our sister Rosanna and also Auntie Ofelia.
Thank you so much. I know our time is short. Usually I end with this statement, but I'm beginning with it because it calls on the essence of the work that we're doing, that I began doing publicly for almost 40 years now. I started at Self-Help Graphics, but it's rooted in a teaching my mother gave me in invoking our ancestors. And she said that we all suffer 3 deaths, and that the first death we suffer is the day we give our last breath, the day that we die. Our second death is the day that we're buried, never to be seen on the face of the earth again. And the third, but the most dreaded, horrible death of all, is to be forgotten. And for my mother, she said, never allow our ancestors, especially her great grandmother who raised her, to suffer that third death. and that was Mama Pola, who I felt that I knew intimately, although I had never met her, just through my mother's stories. And when I was a child, I was born in East LA. I still live 4 blocks from where I was born. East LA has 6 cemeteries. I guess at the turn of the century, it was the outskirts of Los Angeles proper. Well, the Catholic cemetery is my neighborhood, is where we would walk to during Day of the Dead or other special times. And it was, we didn't have any living relatives, or rather relatives who had passed away there yet. I was born in 1932, so this is in the early 1930s. My aunt, who was also from my mother's village in Mexico, would gather flowers from their garden, food that they prepared in a basket, and we'd walk to the cemetery with my cousins. And as my cousins and I played in the cemetery, jumping the gravestones, never admonished, never to ever step on them. My mother and my aunt would be cleaning a headstone and decorating it with flowers they brought and pebbles that they found around there. Then they would call us to come and eat around this gravestone. The person that was buried there was not someone related to us, but it was someone from my mother's village, from her homeland. And that connection was what precipitated stories about my grandmother, my great-grandmother, all the grandmothers and grandfathers, especially the one who raised my mother, Mama Pola. And those stories were told over and over again for many occasions. And so that was what really has stayed with me throughout my life, because my mother never let go of the stories, of the remembrances. And so when I started doing public altars, it was some background that I had from those beginnings. At home, my mother only had a very humble little altar on a shelf, maybe, or on top of a piece of furniture. And I imagine many households had that kind of altar, but I never experienced public altars when I was growing up. And they were very simple, the ones at home. The photographs, of course, were there all year long, but for special occasions, like for an ofrenda for Day of the Dead, it was dressed up with white flowers from my mother's garden, gladiolas, carnations, and calla lilies. And then we would have, of course, prayers and the stories. And then my mother would make atole made out of cornmeal, and tamales and buñuelos. And so when I first came upon self-help graphics in 1979, they were already celebrating Day of the Dead in a very public way. But it also was a practice that began to empower the Chicano community right after the Chicano moratorium, where there was violence and the sheriffs killed the famous journalist, the only Chicano journalist for the LA Times, Ruben Salazar. And so that became an annual event where the community came together. And that's where I first found my voice politically, of the things that I had experienced throughout my growing up. And so it was part of this community event that not only brought us together, but celebrating our cultural practices. Now, most people didn't practice Day of the Dead celebrations with ofrendas. But of course, since I brought that from my mother, I started participating in a community altar. And for every year after that, it became a practice that I got involved with my children. And then it just became, after I retired from teaching, it just became my life work. It has become my life work. But it rooted in indigenous practices where we invoke the elements of the 4 elements of water, fire, air, and earth. And those come from, thousands of years back. And so this is something that brings us together, that is rooted in love and devotion. And of course, it's impacted the lives of my children. And Rosanna is one of the, her whole adult life has been involved with this, and she could tell you about that.
I know we're getting short on time, but the image that you're seeing here was from this last year. My mom's story that she told you when she was a little girl, this was the 1930s. And so here we are in 2021, making these ofrendas in a public space for the city of Los Angeles, who are, and people showing up to pay homage to the people that they lost during COVID. And it was just a beautiful thing. So what I want to say about the ofrenda is that it's beautiful, yes, and we put a lot of time and work into it. The flowers that you see there are made out of paper. And so they're paper flowers that we make by hand in community while sharing stories about our loved ones. And so the essence of that oral tradition that's being passed down from one generation to another is being taught to the community, and showing the importance of making an ofrenda, an offering, something that you make by hand to offer gratitude to the ancestors. And I'll just leave it there. I know we're running short on time, so thank you so much for giving us space, and blessings.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Absolutely humbling to see that. It is always a great honor to sit, for me also to witness just all the offerings, the ceremony that was that has been offered so generously, excuse me. Relatives, I want to speak in Tongan. There's particular words I just want to say in Tongan because I don't have any English interpretations for the words. Perhaps one of them is mafana. It's a Tongan word of being humbled, right? It's being humbled. And at the same time, it's perhaps, if I could just quickly, it is really just a connection, right? It's being humble and also being in community, being moved the spirit, being moved by the spirit. And so, mafana pitogloto he hepon. Bagwatuheni I lot of batoki lalo. Bamaloto apasia. A heart of deep gratitude and great humility, right? For me, my heart is on the ground to see and to witness, right, relatives? And this is all of us, of course, all of you that joined in, right? All of you, we want to honor your ancestors as well. That's something that I had forgotten to say in the beginning. We want to honor your ancestors as well. For every single one of you that you carry, you bring also your ancestors of the past, the present, and the future as you entered into this room for this Talanoa space. And so I recognize that we don't have a lot of time tonight. If I saw correctly, Betty, that we're hoping that maybe we can give ourselves and of course our wonderful audience about up to 7:15. Did I see that right, Betty? Or did I? Of course, I could have totally just made it up, Betty.
No, that's right. Yes, we can close at 7:15. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Well, relatives, for those of you that are here in Zoom world, that are spending time with us right now, if you have any questions for our, just our beloved, that's it, our beloved cultural practitioners that are here in Talanoa, here in our talk story space with us tonight. We would love to hear from you. This is a moment that we can all be in conversation. You know, I just really want to thank ACTA as well for creating a community space to have these kinds of difficult conversations. And as you saw, relatives, from all the presentations tonight, what we saw presented was that our relatives, the cultural practitioners, also reminded us that ceremony and remembering cultural traditions and teachings is also a celebration, right? It is a celebration, and this is why they're thriving. So great, it seems like maybe Betty, if you can do the facilitation from our community.
Hey there, it's Jen. I'm gonna step in. I see that we've got a raised hand. One moment, let me make sure I can see. Who was it that had a raised hand?
That's Arian.
Go ahead and unmute yourself and you can state your question.
Relatives, before we begin our questions tonight, this is as a facilitator, if I can just really quickly, before you ask your question tonight, I want you relatives to ask yourself, is it a question? Is it a question? Is it a question that also comes from compassion and also sensitivity and respect for these important cultural practitioners? So just with all due respect to all of you, before you ask your question or your comment, I ask that you please think about these small little guidelines before we continue. Thank you so much.
Ariane, go ahead.
Okay. I would just like to say this is my first participation in this group, and I am a Cholone Indian from the Soledad Mission area at the Pinnacles National Park in California. We are Indigenous people and have been around for over 5,000 years. But this video tonight was an amazing progress of where we are today as a people, coming together with all of our different nationalities and cultures and traditions. And I'm so grateful and amazed at everybody's uniqueness and respect that's been given tonight, and information. And this is what we need more of, instead of hatred and division. This is what we need. We need healing and the culture and traditions to come back to life so that we can teach the younger generations how to lead the future for us. So thank you for everyone that spoke, and I'm so blessed to have had the opportunity to learn so many cultures, because I am Hispanic, I am Native American, I am, my grandfather was from Canton, China. I am Polynesian, I am German, and I am Spaniard. So a little bit of everything, as they say, but with respect to everyone, everything is important. And this is just amazing. So thank you all for participating and opening yourselves up to things that many people aren't aware of. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our sister Ariana. Is it Ariana? Or Ariane?
Ariane.
Ariane. Thank you so much, Ariane. We really appreciate. And this is, you mentioned this is your first Zoom meeting that you participated in?
This is my first meeting for the Alliance.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and I am the chairwoman of our council, so the Cholone Indian Council of Bakersfield.
Wow, Bakersfield. Wow.
Bakersfield in the house.
Wow, what a great honor. What a great honor. And we're so humbled to have you in this space. So thank you so much, Tribal Chair Chao Garcia, for sharing your wisdom and your great love with all of us here today.
Thank you.
So much. So moving, so touching. And so relatives, this is also an opportunity. If you had a question, or you had, sure, we have, I'll give it back to you, Betty or Jen.
Yes, we have a question from Lily Karazi for Preston Arrow-weed, asking, are the young people eager to learn the mourning songs? So Preston, if you can go ahead and unmute yourself one more time.
Oh.
There you are.
There you are. Good to
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I've taught many young men how to sing. I taught them how to sing. I gave them every word that's in the song, and they're all singing. But it doesn't come to you right away as you think. It takes time. I sang for almost 2-3 years before I really caught on what it's about, the language and what it means and all of that. So they are learning the basics, and hopefully in the future, they'll learn more and they'll do more. I've taught language. To this program, I taught one young man how to speak Quechan, but I have taught many kids on my reservation how to sing. And with the song comes other things. The ceremony everybody talks about. It's there too. That answer? Is that it?
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Uncle. Wow, what a great commitment that you have, and especially to teach the next 7 generations. Thank you so much, Uncle. And so I'll give it right back to you, Jen and Betty.
Yes. Ellie and Rio Salado, GED class in Arizona. Wow. One of the students is asking, thank you for sharing your practices, but for some, how is it that you deal with grief after that passing? What are some techniques beyond the rituals performed during the process of burial or immediate mourning? So I guess we can just open it up.
We can talk about that.
One of the things that I believe not only is a healing one, but it's also of recognizing the presence of our loved ones who they're moving on to another phase of living, as it was believed by the ancient Mexicans. And that's to build an ofrenda in your home, even if it's just a candle and a photograph, but continue with telling the stories, especially to the younger people. And those become moments that recur throughout the year. They become special times, and it is part of that remembrance that keeps them alive in our memory. And I think I say that we pray to our loved ones, not for them, because now they're in the realm of, you could say, guardian angels. We talked about that. And so you continue with honoring and remembering in your everyday life. But I think building an altar that you could have all year long and dress it up for special occasions, like their birthdays or celebrations.
I could just add to that quickly, is like having a small altar could be a photo and some other items there, could have a candle, but even just having your morning coffee and tea and just having a conversation, because those ancestors, and we call them ancestors, even if they transitioned a week ago, is they know the truth. They're on the side of knowing. And we are too. We are whole people, but when we tap into that wisdom, we're remembering that there's so much that has been lost. And so even though we're whole, we're lacking all of the knowledge of what is who we are as Indigenous people, as human beings. And so praying to those ancestors, they are there for you to support you in full wholeness and truth.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sister Rosanna, and thank you so much, Auntie and Mother Ofelia. You know, I just wanted to bring up a point here, because when I was listening to the question, that part of the question was like, how do you deal with grief, right? What are perhaps some methodologies or strategies outside of ceremony? Perhaps, maybe I heard the question incorrectly, and please forgive me if I'm wrong to the person who asked the question. But what I really appreciate, and I just want to draw out of the answers, Ofelia and Rosanna, you pointed out, is that it's important to really recognize the essential role, right? The essential role of ceremony. That ceremony as a tool and as a methodology for healing, especially, right? Especially after the losses, cannot be ignored, that it is, in fact, needs to be centered. So I really appreciate that, and thank you for bringing that up. And perhaps we'll go also to, the question also can be addressed by some of our other wonderful cultural practitioners.
Yeah, I will add on to that and actually agree with Rosanna and Ofelia in the practice of through Buddhism. There is the altar, and there is a form of talking with them and being present with them, and actually sharing a meal is part of it as well. So just confirming, Rosanna, Ophelia, that I,
yeah.
Go ahead, Wanda.
Can you hear me? A lot of times people are doing things and they don't necessarily see it as, am I unmuted? Oh, they don't necessarily see that what they're doing is an act that is helping them with their grief. So one of the ways that we were able to connect with African Americans, most of whom are Christian, is just to say, well, you know, in most people's houses, you would have, there's a corner where there's pictures of the deceased with Jesus and with sometimes Martin Luther King. And so then there already is a place in the house where people are kind of acknowledging their dead. And it's a place of healing. When my nephew died, 6 months later, I went to their house in Philadelphia and I put down a picture, a candle, a glass of water. And I said to my mother, I said, you know, I just need to do this for Lamont. And she accepted, a very Christian woman, she accepted it. And then everybody who came to the house during the week I was there, while that candle burned, she took them to that place where I had put it, because it was a way that she was able, it helped her with her mourning, and it helped other people who knew my nephew. So the idea of the ofrenda or the altar is something that is actually very, very useful, and helps you to be able to continue. Because one thing that I notice when someone leaves is that you miss being able to do something for them. And so then this offering is a way to continue that relationship of being able to give them something. So you give them light, you give them water, you give them food.
Also, it's so beautiful that you notice that all the various rituals, they're really the same. We're not different. We're the same. And it's not a religion, it's not religious. You know, it is more what I would say a divine spirituality that we all share. You know, I listen to some of the comments that everyone make, and I see the rituals that we form. I see the exact same things. We sing because when someone passes, when they cross over, it kind of shatters your world in a way. It takes your vibration and disturbs it. And so when you sing, these songs are not just songs. It's part of the science that our ancestors understood. They would actually reconstruct your vibration. And that's why you would feel, you feel the change in yourself. You can feel the mourning start to, for yourself, for it to subside and for it to calm someone in you. It's like massaging your spirit. You know, our ancestors understood that these are not, when we sing, these are not just songs. You know, it's more to it. You know, and they understood how to massage your spirit, how to reconnect you. Because look, when you want to know who your ancestors are, touch your hand, touch your face. I look in the mirror, and sometimes when I'm talking, I hear my mother's voice come out of me, or hear my father's voice come out of me, because that's where they reside now. They're not just in the ground. They're not just in the air. They're everywhere. And so that's the beauty of these ancient traditions that our ancestors understood. There's no such thing as race. We could be someplace geographically different, but we all just humans, and we all wake up in the morning and we just want the same things. We want to take care of our children, we want to be happy, we want to enjoy ourselves. And then we have a tragedy where we lose someone, and we want to be able to, it's very important to remember them, because that's so important to call their names. One of the things that we do in our ritual, and it's very difficult, obviously we only have so much time, I'm gonna stop right now, but we call their names every time. I used to get up every morning and call all of them, all my ancestors. And then someone would call me and say, did you know about Uncle so-and-so? No, I didn't know about him. Put him on the list. I call that name. I find some information about him. So, I do appreciate this us coming together, because the only one that's going to save us is us. We get marginalized because we're not as connected as we would like to think we are. We need to be connected. We need to understand each other, and we need to work with each other. So anyway, thank you for this to be able to participate in this.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Father Tabaji, and also Mother Wanda. Thank you so much for those really important words, and thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your commitment to our world. And our sister Haydee is going to give us her thoughts on that. Before I forget, I just really want to give out a big shout out, exactly what Amy wrote. Big shout out to the GED students. Thank you so much for this question. And we love you guys. We love you guys. We want to see you succeed and make it. And thank you so much for your struggle and your commitment as well to our world. So we love you. Sister Haydee?
Sí, una de las cosas.
Yes, so one of the things that I believe it is very important to share is the fact that when you saw my presentation, I had an altar there, right? That altar is there. It is at the cultural center because there we lost who was the vice president of the cultural center of Techantit. So we have a permanent altar there, because we think, we considered that in that moment where we are looking at his picture, he was surrounded by children most of the time, or always helping us. He was always helping the community. That is how we want to remember him. We want to remember him with that happiness, with that joy. We do not want to remember him as a sick person, but we want to remember him happy. And not only that, but when the youth comes to our center and they see the picture of when they see his picture, some of them cry, some of them laugh, and some of them just talk to God. And that is a way in which we are trying to work so we can, move away from that loss, from the loss of Tata Policarpo. But we are also developing our ancestral ceremonies, the ceremonies of the fire, in which we are offering and talking to him. We're having a conversation, and fire also speaks. Generally, we can see when we speak to our grandparents that they're reflected in fire, and that's one of the most important things, and that fills us spirit, our heart, but it also fills us with joy. So that immense pain, that loss that we went through because of the loss of a loved one, now as a being made of light, they help us to keep moving forward and to focus our lives maybe differently, seeking that angle, of the passage of time. So that's why ceremonies are also a way of not only carrying grief, but also moving away from that grief. That is not just a loss, but it is also, to us, it is our protection in a way. So the spirit of the loved one whom we lost, really, we have to think that they're always going to be with us and they never leave us. That is what makes that when the young people come to the cultural center and they see Tata Poli, I'm sorry, they say, oh, Tata Poli is always with us, right? That is a way of carrying grief and also just commemorating that life constantly of that being who left us. So I think that also helps us to see death not only as a bad or a negative thing. It's not just the loss, it's not just a big loss, but we can also see it as a way of a form of transition, because we know that our ancestors or grandparents are going to come back to us. And sometimes when we are in our backyards or like next to the altar, we can smell it, we taste it, we see the flowers, and those flowers are speaking to us. And it really depends on how we're connected to the loved one. Also, in the flowers, it is different when we notice that the spirits of our ancestors are also there, right? So it is very important for us to learn how to heal and healing our community, our own places, the places we inhabit, our loved ones, to leave without having their spirit, without the spirit just suffering. And it is there's the reciprocity is a way of understanding our own spirit and trying to live life in a more pleasant and joyous way without suffering too much, because it's not just the loss. So that's something that I wanted to share with you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sister Haydee, for your great commitment. Just a great commitment in hearing and just knowledges that you shared with us throughout this evening. And especially in that last statement last offering that you gave us. So thank you so much. It's also so generous, the work that you do. So relatives, we're coming to an end of our important, it's a ceremony, our ceremony that we had tonight, right? As every single cultural practitioner talked about throughout all their offerings, right? They're not just presentations, but there were offerings tonight, not only from their hearts, but really honoring their various and respective communities. And also every single one of you, we're so touched as witnesses, we're so touched to see your great love and your difficult work, right? Your difficult work to resist. Right here in the United States, there is a narrative on how to become an American and to belong in this nation. And part of that is it's actually to refuse and to throw our memories of the past away as if they were nothing and they're not important anymore. And we want to thank you just humbly thank every single one of you for refusing that. And instead, what we saw is just a commitment to memory, right? A commitment to the stories, and what we also especially were so moved by is just the voices of the elders in this Talanoa space. And so we want to thank our relatives, actually, the wonderful organizers of this Talanoa space tonight at ACTA. Thank you for also creating an intergenerational space. And just thank you for bringing us all together. And so we wish continued blessings on every single one of you, all the cultural practitioners from all the four corners of the earth that were here tonight. Thank you for your beautiful work for our, not only to honor the ancestors of the past, all of us here today in this present moment, and also thank you for loving our children and the next 7 generations that are to come. We wish you great blessings and thank you so much. And thank you to our wonderful audience as well. And we give it back to our ACTA wonderful sisters and our organizers.
Gracias, Fui, y sí, de nuevo.
Thank you so much, Fui. And what an honor was to share this space with you. Thank you so much, Fui. Thank you so much, Haydee, Ofelia, Rosanna, Preston, Wanda, Raji and Melody, and all of you who participated and listened and shared with us in this space. We welcome you to keep sharing with us in future events and spaces. And also a very brief announcement is that we are going to start our grants, the mentorship program, and also the mentee mentorship program, and also the Culturas Vivas, the Life Cultures program, and we are going to start that next year. So if you are registered in our mailing list, you will receive those announcements. Jen is mentioning that we will have the recording available. It's going to be in both English and Spanish on Acta's YouTube very shortly, so you can share it. Again, thank you so much, Alexia and Jen, my colleagues, Jen and Amy Kitchener. Thank you all, and have a great evening, and thank you so much all. Thank you.
No words, Amy. You know, if you guys lived close by, I would say, hey, come over and let's eat. That's what we do.
What's for dinner?